This was the miracle of technology applied in a way that would save lives.
Every weapon has something that's adapted to. You know, artillery is adept at lobbing rounds out a mile or so. Submarines are good about going under the water. Drones are good for assassination.
The modern battlefield in Iraq is constantly evolving. In 2002, the Air Force introduced the Predator B, an upgrade model of the combat-proven Predator. The B model was renamed the MQ-9 Reaper and is now protecting troops on the ground.
On the outskirts of Syracuse, just north of Syracuse at Hancock Air Base, is the National Maintenance Center for the Reaper drone. It's also going to become a training center for piloting the Reaper drone.
The thing about the drones that is most scary, I believe, is how seductive they are. They're cheaper. When they get destroyed, it's a hell of a lot less impact financially.
The Reaper is a very advanced, high-tech, unmanned aerial vehicle. It's a plane with no crew. No human beings are in the plane, but it's piloted from the ground via computers and, satellite hookup and so forth. So it's a robot.
Excitement about the drones was based on the fact that pilots would no longer be in danger. For the Army now to be able to tout this alternative, which in fact keeps the pilots safe, was really exciting.
Unmanned systems, just part of an intricate network of technology used by the United States military.
Priority effects at our current position.
One of the newest parts of the network is the MQ-8B Fire Scout, an unmanned aerial vehicle, or UAV. Developed by Northrop Grumman, it's similar to its full-sized brothers. But this helicopter is only 10 feet tall and about 6 feet wide.
And it can find things in the dark.
It's built for reconnaissance and complex terrain.
The great value of an unmanned vehicle is you reduce the exposure of soldiers. That is absolutely the best thing to do.
The Fire Scout works with other unmanned vehicles to detect, locate, and identify targets.
In this particular case, we would go ahead and land, discharge the SUG-V, the unmanned ground vehicle, and we would use the aircraft as a comm relay to control the SUG-V and then get the information coming from the SUG-V back up into the network or into the command.
The Fire Scout is the Army's future eye in the sky.
The drone is ushering in a whole new wave of warfare, of technology, robotics.
Over 40 nations now have drones. So it's a weapon that I don't think people realize.
That's going to have enormous implications for how wars are fought. When I try to kind of get a big picture on my past history, the easiest way to go about it is to think in terms of various cities where I've been arrested. I'd been living a simple life for quite some time, and so being in prison wasn't that drastic a change. Having been an activist for some time, I want to raise my own consciousness and then, by extension, help raise the consciousness of others to expose things. Exit 11, 81 South. Make a right at the end of the ramp.
You have Jeff in front of us.
Okay. And I think by doing these things, it kind of keeps your own consciousness more alive. And she had been down in Colombia, where they, down there's this kind of activist device where, like on a street corner in Bogota, there'll be a person who is in a costume, or maybe in whiteface, whatever, just standing stock still for a period of time, maybe half an hour or whatever, to demonstrate some point. And Ann and some of the other folks from Syracuse who went down to our sister community in Columbia, saw these people on the street corners and came back and thought, well, why don't we do that here? And what that evolved into was not just one individual standing stock still for a period of time, but we developed like a storyline such that the tableau we use today is meant to dramatize the Reaper drone and its destructiveness, and how the impact of that destructiveness is such that it leads to Al-Qaeda being able to recruit people much more readily. But it's a very dramatic visual statement.
يقصف أي شيء، يضرب أي شيء، ما يهمه إذا كان هدف عسكري أو إذا كان هدف مدني. وتقدر ترجع أنت 2003 وتشوف الأهداف المدنية والعسكرية كلها كانت مضروبة، وكلها يضربها. لربما يكون هو الطيار الأمريكي محق، بس لكن يعني ما كان أكو شيء بالإيد. What can I do? What in my hand? I need just help the pupil, send him to hospital, and see his date. What can I do for him? I need to forget that.
While the technology gets better and better and better, nevertheless, there are accidents. So the scenario is the CIA and or the Army know that bad guy 719 on the list, Muhammad Abdullah, is working outside of the hinterlands of where the Pakistani-Afghan border is. So we're going to take him out with the drones. Well, it turns out that maybe the intelligence wasn't as good as we thought, and Abdullah Muhammad or Muhammad Abdullah is not quite there, and we've made a mistake.
Just sound.
And instead, the drone has dropped a bomb on a wedding party.
شنو الطيران? Sometimes kill any people, and sometimes no, just in the target. No all time.
So the response of the Pentagon and the people and the leadership there, and I believe this is totally authentic, they're profoundly sorry. 10 days later, the same thing happens. Only it's not a wedding this time, it's a house. And yes, they managed to kill Muhammad Abdullah, and there were 7 or 8 other people there, civilians. That's collateral damage. Another disgusting euphemism. So we apologize again.
So what kind of impact will software like this have in the real world?
Well, our hope is that we can help search and rescue personnel to do their jobs, to find missing people and to potentially save lives.
So if I get lost one day, I might see one of these flying overhead looking for me?
Yep, it's possible. You might see a plane flying up there, and it might be running a camera with mosaicing software like this.
So what other things can you do with the UAVs? Does it go beyond search and rescue?
Well, there's a lot of research going into unmanned aerial vehicles in the past 10 years and into the future, ongoing. The military has used them a lot. Civilian applications are just starting. Cartography, fighting wildfires, search and rescue. Basically, anything where a bird's eye view is an advantage, then it's a potential application for an unmanned aerial vehicle.
So these could be used in all sorts of different things throughout society.
Yeah.
As long as the American civilians are willing to pay for and are willing to tolerate war, we will have war. In a generation now when what we are fighting is asymmetrical war, and asymmetrical war is about winning hearts and minds, they are a weapon which loses hearts and minds.
And shooting. And shooting.
You know, Eisenhower has a quote about war. He said, every warship launched, every rocket fired is in the final analysis a theft from those who are hungry and are not fed, from those who are cold and are not clothed. This world at war is not spending money alone. It's spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, and the future of its children. Under the dark cloud of war, it is humanity hanging on a cross of iron.
It's a very deliberate, conscious thing that's going on here. It's this very kind of distanced taking of lives. A lot of young people have been raised with computer games, and in computer games, you know, people get obliterated at the press of a button or with the use of a joystick or whatever. But it desensitizes us when we kind of play these games to killing very readily. And the Reaper drone is just very similar to playing a computer game. And in fact, the Pentagon and the computer game manufacturers have worked hand in hand to develop this toy technology to better develop the skills of young people so that they could become better drone pilots. And if you've got, you know, this years of background of just obliterating people on a screen, it makes it easier to do it in real life. So the United States is a pioneer in the development of drone technology. And it's right here in Syracuse. But the trouble is, with a lot of scholarship, is how it gets used.
Every so often you have technologies that come along that rewrite the rules of the game. Yet we don't talk about it because it's costless to us.
It is a complete cultural change for the Air Force. Pretty soon we will have more unmanned than manned aircraft. It's almost surreal.
Come down to the ground. Thank you.
Other aircraft, airspace, altitude.
All right, looks like we're by ourselves out here, 63 Bravo high, W6.
This isn't a video game. This is a real airplane flying through real airspace. You need to be able to think through a three-dimensional problem that's located 7,500 miles away from you.
Room, 10 Hood.
The biggest risk that we accept is that detachment from it. Real live weapons, doing a real mission. I try to ensure that people understand there are people who are counting on us to do the mission. You're no longer sitting at Creech Air Force Base. There's severe both military and political consequences if we fail. Get in that mindset. When you step into the GCS, you are in the fight.
In the morning when I come to work, I pray.
that God gives me strength, that He gives me wisdom. You're saving people's lives by employing weapons. That's the business that we're in.
There's always a possibility of making mistakes, right?
Right.
Do you ever worry about that? Do you think about that? How does...
Yeah. I mean, everybody worries about things. All you can do is you can make sure that you're prepared.
So you don't think you've ever hit someone you haven't intended to hit?
No. No. This is a very precise weapon where we're putting a laser down and pointing at a target, and the weapon follows the laser. So it's very precise, and it hits what we want it to hit.
And Viper Firm Deadly have a single individual on the roof on the north corner employing weapons at this time.
One time we had intel that there's a bad guy riding around on a motorcycle, if you will. And he's just riding around, and he stopped at 2 or 3 different playgrounds, and he's playing soccer with all of these kids, and he's living his life, and he's doing his normal everyday life. And then, sure enough, at the end of that ride, though, we found him at a meeting of bad people. And it ended up resulting in a strike, so you end up seeing what happens.
Deadly copies that. We got eyes on. 05 rifle, time of flight 15 seconds. That's 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good splash.
Going to war has meant the same thing for over 5,000 years. Going to war meant that you were going to a place where there was such danger that you might never come home again. You might never see your family again. Now compare that experience to that of a Predator drone pilot. You're sitting behind a computer screen, you're shooting missiles at enemy targets, you're killing enemy combatants, and then at the end of the day, you get back in your car, and 20 minutes later, you're at the dinner table talking to your kids about their homework.
Hey guys! Hi. I mean, they know I fly UAVs, but I don't necessarily go home and tell them that, what mission I flew or something like that. How was your day, buddy?
Good.
Yeah, that's a challenge in the job, that you've got to do that day in and day out.
Went to recess.
We're finding that some of these units, these drone pilots, actually have combat stress and PTSD even, just like the units physically deployed into Iraq and Afghanistan. And it makes perfect sense when you pull back and think about it, because this disconnect of being at war and at home is very tough for the human mind to wrap itself around.